By the time I'd finished middle school, my parents trusted me to be alone in the house by myself for a long period of time. We're talking days at a time. My parents would sometimes go out of state on a small vacation for the weekend, leaving me in the house by myself. Back to the present, it was a chilly fall evening. My parents had left early Friday morning and wouldn't be back until Sunday night. Everything went fine until Saturday. It was getting to be around dinner time. After I fed my dog, I texted my mum asking for a bit of money to order a pizza because I didn't feel like cooking that night. I ordered the pizza and sat on the couch playing a shooting game until the time had passed and I heard the doorbell ring. I got up and quickly threw on my jacket and went to look through the peephole. There stood the pizza guy, a medium-height, middle-aged looking guy. He had dirty blonde hair and eye bags, seeming like he hadn't slept in a year. I could smell the dirty stench of cigarettes through my door. I unlocked the door and opened it the equivalent to my body width and greeted him with a smile. His eyes darted over to me. A small, creepy grin grew on his face. "Oh, I wasn't expecting a young girl like you," he said. Gross, I thought. Confused on how to answer, I replied in a quiet giggle. I held out my hands to take my food. "So, how old are you?" the man asked, still grinning. "Sorry, man, I don't answer questions like that," I said, even more creeped out than before. He huffed, seeming to get frustrated. I placed the pizza boxes down on the couch next to me and reached into my pocket to hand him the tip I had planned to give him. "Are your parents home?" he asked. Lying, I replied, "Yeah, they're in the other room." I hoped he would believe me and just go, seeing as my parents took my mom's car on vacation, leaving my dad's car in the driveway. He scoffed and said, "You know, I like that game too. Do you like shooters?" Referring to my paused game screen on the TV behind me. I became increasingly annoyed, but I didn't want to be rude and just slammed the door in his face. "Yeah, sure, look, I'm sorry, but I have to go now," I said, trying everything I could to get this man to leave me the hell alone. The man scowled. He took the tip and crumpled it in his hand and started muttering profanities under his breath. "You're gonna regret this." I locked the door and anxiously watched carefully from the window to make sure he got back in his car. I didn't stop watching until he sped off around the corner. I let out a sigh of relief. A couple of hours had passed until I decided I was going to lay down and watch TV for the night until I fell asleep. I made sure my dog was tended to and laid down. Before I noticed I had drifted off, completely forgetting the interaction I had earlier in the day. When I woke up, it was still dark outside. My dog was barking like crazy, and not a "I want to go outside" bark, an alarmed "I see a stranger" kind of bark. I propped myself up on my elbows and stretched for a second, looked around for a bit, and didn't see anything. I was about to lay back down until I noticed it in the corner of my eye. A face. In the window to my right, I saw the same man from earlier, grinning again. He waved at me, still smiling, but looking more sinister by the second. I felt my blood run cold. Why is he here? How long had he been watching me sleep? I shot up, my fight or flight triggered instantly. I ran to my room and pulled the baseball bat out from underneath my bed and walked back to the living room where I had been sleeping, clutching it in hand. When I went back, the man had moved from the window to the front door, knocking gently. "Let's hang out and have some fun," I heard him say from outside. "I'm gonna call the police if you don't get the hell away from my house," I yelled back. He banged on the door, violently aggressive this time. "The hell you will, you little brat," he screamed. The doorknob shook violently. My dog was going mad at this point, so I took her with me and locked myself into my room and dialed 911 on my phone. I was explaining what was happening when I heard a couple loud bangs. He was throwing himself at my front door to try to bust through it. I had texted my parents, and they had already packed and started driving back. But all of that left my mind when I heard the front door burst open and fall onto the ground of my living room. I whispered into my phone to the 911 operator that the man had broken into my house, and the person on the other end of the line instructed me to stay quiet and sit tight as the police were minutes away. Before I could think of anything, my phone died and I started panicking. I quietly went over and shut my bedroom lights off and hid in my closet with my dog, petting her as to make sure she wouldn't bark and reveal our hiding spot. I heard the man walking through my house, searching under tables, behind couches, and in hallway closets. He stopped walking for a moment. I could hear him directly outside my bedroom door. There was a couple bangs on the door before he was able to punch a hole through my door, but enough to fit his hand through to unlock it. I heard the lock. It gave a small click sound before the door creaked open. It was pitch black in my room. The man took a step in and stood there. Seconds felt like hours. I heard him rummaging through my belongings. He looked under the bed, under my desk, and then he had his hand on the closet door. I'm dead, I thought. Before he had the chance to open the closet, my prayers were answered, and I heard the sirens of police getting closer and closer. Damn it, the man whispered. He exited my bedroom and ran through my home. I heard the back door slide open and the crunching footsteps through the dead grass. The 911 operator must have told the police where I was, and I felt like I could finally breathe again when an officer opened the closet door and told me it was okay to come out. They led me outside with my dog in leash, and I sat on the edge of the set in the police car. I waited there as the police searched my house in case the man had still been there. The police said there were no signs anything was stolen. He wasn't there for valuables. He was looking for me. That fact will disturb me till the day I die. A day before Valentine's Day 2010, I experienced the most terrifying night alone at home that I hope I ever experience. My mom and dad had asked me to dog sit our family German Shepherd at the house I grew up in Philadelphia while they took their first, them only vacation since my brother or myself had been born. The plan was for them to be gone 8 days, but the night in question, the third night after they'd left, was reason enough for them to come home early. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room, as my old bedroom was now a storage room for my dad's stuff. And around 3 or 4 a.m., an explosively loud bang woke me up from a dead sleep, and my dog started going crazy. I assumed it was his barking that had woken me up, so despite being scared, my first thought was to sit up on the couch and call him over to me, to reassure him that everything was fine and he could go back to sleep. But just before I was going to sit up to do that, I heard a woman scream, "No, Dad, no!" in absolute terror, followed by another incredibly loud bang, and immediately felt tiny wood splinters fall into my eye from the wall the couch was against as they trickled down onto my face. That second bang turned out to be the sound of my neighbor shooting and killing his daughter. Those wood shavings that had gotten into my eye. They were from where the impact of either her body or the bullet, or both, hitting the wall directly on the other side of where I was sleeping, had splintered some of the brick between our houses and caused my living room wall to push in a few millimeters. My head would have been pretty damn close to this spot had I actually sat up after the first bang to reassure my dog. Given that the bullet didn't actually come through the wall, I would have been fine even if I had sat up. But knowing what I know now, I'm glad I laid there for that extra second. Naturally, I called 911, made sure my front and back doors and all the windows were locked because the last thing I needed was for the guy to try to get into my house. Within 3 minutes, the next bangs I was hearing were those of the police kicking the guy's door down and screaming for him to get on the ground. I sat at my window and watched them walk him out in cuffs and put him in a cruiser. And it wasn't until the cops in the one cruiser had driven away with him in the back that I finally opened my door to talk to the other cops that were still on the scene and talk to some of them about what I'd heard, give a statement and all that. A week later, I was subpoenaed to testify against him in court because he was claiming that the whole thing was an accident. However, I heard his daughter scream, "No, Dad, no," before he fired the second time. No way in hell it was accidental. Testifying against him was terrifying because if he got off, well, he was my parents' neighbor, and I knew he wasn't above murder. Thankfully, the DA made sure he didn't get off. He's 70 years old now and has another 20+ years of jail time with no possibility of parole. It was the scariest night alone I've ever experienced. This happened in August of 2016. I am supremely cautious about locking the door behind me in my apartment complex because I'm female and live by myself with 2 small dogs, one of whom is likely to lazily lay in bed and woof at you from under the covers, and the other who will defend me to the death. I had gone to do laundry at the on-site laundry room, and when I came back around 10 p.m., I started to lock the door, but realized I left the detergent in my car. I left the door unlocked, intending to go right back out and get it once I set the laundry down in my room. I was tired and somehow got distracted and then fell asleep without intending to. Around 3 a.m., I sit bolt upright in bed because both my little dogs have charged from the bedroom into the living room, and even my lazy chihuahua is barking his big serious bark and growling. And then I see the shadow of a man on the hallway wall, backlit by the living room lights I left on. Like some horror movie moron, I said, "Hello, who's there?" Really loud, and I hear the person start to retreat. So then I charge after this person. Man, I do dumb things when scared and still half asleep. I see someone, male and slim, with a smallish build in a hoodie walking through my living room. He's mumbling that he's my neighbor and my door was open, and 2 black dudes were standing there, so he came to see what was going on. And the whole time he's saying this, he's fleeing my apartment. I locked both deadbolts after him, spent a sleepless night freaking out about all the things that could have happened, and kicked myself for not hiding and for not calling the cops. I did report it to the apartment management the next day in case anyone else had a similar experience. About 5 months later, I come home to a flyer put out by the local police department and a letter from the apartment manager about a serial rapist the police are looking for in my part of the city. And though I didn't get a good enough look at his face at all to say for sure, the description and drawing on the police flyer are of a slight man in a hoodie.